Hi, my name is Yahav, and I was born and raised as an Israeli and as a Zionist. During the past few years, I've gone through a process of questioning the narrative I grew up with regarding this land we live in and the people living on it. This podcast is about voices of the disillusioned. Each episode is a one-on-one heartfelt conversation with an activist who supports the Palestinian struggle, telling the story of the journey that led them to see through what they were taught. Each of these people has their own unique path that I believe anyone can learn from. Whether you're a Palestinian or a Jew living here or abroad, or just anyone who feels strongly about this subject. I hope you learn as much as I learn from them about how to build a better future for all people between the river and the sea. I'm sitting here with Yoni. It's not your real name, but we're going to use that alias name because what you do is kind of tricky. I want to start this time from what you do and not your personal biography.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that what you do is really special and I want to talk about it a little, and I'm going to give my interpretation or my description and tell me how I did, okay?
Okay, that sounds great.
So basically, you're a graffiti artist, among others, and there's this very famous graffiti piece that you do all over the country, all across, in different places, on bridges, on very big highways, or on buildings, on places that people can really see it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, very simple. It's just very bold letters writing Lama hitgayasti? ? Which means, in Hebrew, the literal meaning is, why did I enlist? But if you translate it more, in the core of the meaning of it is, why did I join the army? Why did I serve in the army?
Yeah. Another way to interpret it is like, which I came up with much later, is like the verb in Hebrew is like something about like recruited into some mission, into some,
Yeah, so why did I join this mission? Why did I get recruited?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people know this sentence or this question. They see it all over the place, and they don't know who you are. They don't know who did it. It's not signed, and it's been here and there a little bit in the media, right?
Yeah, there's been a few references.
Few articles about like, who's this anonymous person that writes in different places in huge bold letters, why did I join the army? Yeah. And I remember this for years. I mean, for years, I remember myself as a young Israeli driving around, walking around, seeing this and asking myself like, wow, this person really regrets serving in the army, I guess. Or, I mean, that's what it kind of implies, but
Good.
I like the fact that there's a question mark there. There's this question about why did I do this? Why did I take part in this?
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you a little bit about this project, I guess you could call it. This is something that you've been doing for years. Nobody knows that you're the person behind it, but everybody knows the message, which is pretty cool, I think. And also very bold because you do it in places where you could easily be caught, and also places that are kind of dangerous to climb on. I mean, you have to kind of make an effort to get to those places and make it that bold.
Yeah. When I started, I lived in Tel Aviv for a while, and there's a lot of graffiti in Tel Aviv, and a lot of smart graffiti, like lots of political graffiti, but it's in Tel Aviv, and that's very limited. Like you don't. I started there as well, but then at some point I thought, well, I want to reach more people.
And more audiences that are not Tel Aviv liberals.
Exactly. Yes. The audiences like me myself before I joined the army, in a way.
So you can see this graffiti literally all over, from the north to the south. And you've done road trips to create this in the past?
Yeah, I've done road trips. It was my baby for a while. I don't do it as much these days, but at some point I did a lot of it for a few good years. Yes.
When did you start this?
I started it like almost 10 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. At some point I was living abroad and I came back to Israel. Actually, I started before this one. I started with something else. Basically, I rented a place in Jaffa. And I was living there, and at some point I realized that I'm living very close to Galet Tzahal.
To the military radio station.
Yeah, a radio station. Like I think most people abroad don't know it, but I think the two most listened to radio stations in Israel are made by the army.
Yeah. Basically, the media is controlled by the military.
Yes. And for most people in Israel, it's completely trivial. Nobody see any problem in that. And I didn't see for a long while.
Yeah, and none of us saw a problem with that until we started seeing that it's very weird.
Yeah, it's very weird. And I think the most harmful thing about it is not the messages that they broadcast, because they broadcast messages that are very Israelis, very common, that every other network is doing the same.
Yeah, very mainstream.
Very mainstream. But the thing with this station is that basically the station is the biggest journalist school in Israel. Like most of the journalists come from this station, come from being soldiers and journalists, which is horrible.
Yeah, and also it's very horrible that it's in the middle of Jaffa.
Yeah.
Which is a Palestinian city.
Yes.
Originally.
Yeah. So I walked one day and I saw this station over there and I thought, what? Like this station is right here in the middle of the city, and like nobody's doing anything about it. Nobody just like, I don't know, like wrote on the wall, I don't know, like army get out of the radio or something like that. Like shit. Well, okay, I'll do it.
That's how it started.
That's how it started. Yeah.
So you wrote "Army, get out of our radio"?
That's what I went home and I made like the shittiest stencil ever. It was really bad. And then I came one night and I wrote it. And the army has like endless resources and human power. So within a couple of hours, the next day it was erased. And then I came like a couple of days later and I was like, you think you can get rid of me so fast? No way. Then I did 2 of these and then they were erased in 2 hours. Then I was like, okay, time to up my game. And then I just basically did every wall in a radius of 500 meters in Jaffa. And I wrote this text. All Jaffa was full of it.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. That's like hundreds of how many?
No, not so many. But it was there. It was part of Jaffa at that time.
I actually remember this.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that you did it. That's really cool. Tzava צא לנו מהרדיו.
Yeah.
Like that?
That's the one.
Very simple. I like that the messages are very, very simple.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like,
that's another thing. Another thing, like in the I also had a phase of like doing like kind of smart and sophisticated pieces with smart slogans, but and there's also many of these in Tel Aviv, very witty, very smart. But I think most people don't get them, and I don't like. My point is not to be witty, is like to send a message so that as many people can understand and can relate to.
It is very relatable. The questioning, why was I part of this, is something that not many people do here. And I think that just posing the question in front of people's eyes in places that they cannot ignore is very, very powerful. It's like in your face, and it's graffiti. So it's like, it's not like it's erased everywhere. You know, some places people can't even really get there. And it's not like the municipality or something. It's between cities and.
Yeah.
But some people try and erase them.
Many people try to erase. I think most of them are erased by now. Like if everything I put up there was still there, it was like ginormous.
I think that the story of how people erase it is also very interesting, because you told me the effort that someone has to put in to erasing it says a lot about how strongly they feel about this.
Yeah, exactly. Some places, like I go by and I like see one of my pieces being erased or like being changed just to get Gayasti, or I joined the IDF. Somebody changed something about it, but I look at it and I'm like, I'm not happy that somebody messed it up, but I really appreciate that somebody actually went there, because I know what it takes to get to that point. And I'm like, all right, man.
You know, if you're willing to do all that to make your point, then I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting because people actually started not erasing it necessarily, but adding words or changing the question mark into an exclamation mark, and then erase the lama, the why, and then all you have left is hitgayasti, meaning I enlisted, exclamation mark.
Mm-hmm.
So like
Yeah.
a message like that, or some people, you have the question of why did I serve in the army, and then they add kitzarich, meaning because you need to.
Yeah.
It's like all these different thoughts that people have about what you wrote are like appearing. It's like there's a conversation going on the wall.
Yeah, a bunch of people changed it to התגייסתי לגולני, to Givati.
Like I served in a certain unit.
Yeah. One guy actually answered to me, and then I answered him. And I think he answered back. He answered because I'm a Zionist. Well, it was a long time ago. Maybe I answered.
It's a pretty good answer, I have to say. It's a pretty straightforward.
Yeah, but then I asked, like, what does that even mean? I wrote on the wall.
Oh, nice. I like that. I didn't see that one. I think that it's really interesting that you made an effort to put it in as many places as you can, including outside army bases.
Yeah.
Which is extra risky.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, well, first of all, there's army bases everywhere in Israel, so it's not hard to find one.
So you're saying anywhere you're going to graffiti something, it's going to be near an army base?
Basically, yes. And also, like, I didn't... It's not that I looked for this army base specifically. I just drove by and like, oh, that's a good wall. And they're like making officers here, so that's even better.
Yeah, that one was really good. I think that doing it right outside of an army base, of the army base that trains soldiers to become officers, is extra clever or extra powerful, I guess. It's like when you told me that you did one there, I was like, wow, I thank you for doing that. Those people really need a wake-up call. They really need that question to be posed in front of their eyes.
Thank you. I don't know if it will if it will reach them, this call, but yeah.
Do you feel that there are people that it reaches them and that it makes them question and kind of ask themselves the same question that you are asking yourself in the graffiti?
I don't know. I have no way of knowing. I certainly hope so.
Why? Because nobody that you know knows that you're doing this?
No, few people know, but like there are people like that. They're already older. They're not 17. Like in a way, I wish that the 17-year-old me would see this. This is like the audience I'm mainly going for. Not only, but like in my heart, in a way.
It's interesting because even people who have already served in the army and are okay with it see this, and maybe even after their army service, it makes them question, maybe I was part of something that I shouldn't have been part of. And I think that's also very beneficial. Even if the quote unquote sin has been performed, I think it's important for people to reflect honestly about the things that they've done.
I agree. I hope so.
I think it's amazing that you don't know what the feedback is about this, because I'm sure that so many conversations have been struck up because of this, but not in your presence.
Yeah. The best thing is like when a friend of mine that knows about it, like rides the train, and then he tells me like, I was sitting next to a bunch of soldiers in the train and they were looking at it, and I heard them talking, saying like, who do you think write this thing? Is he really depressed or?
Wow.
And that's that I like, but yeah, I don't get any comments. Basically, I just put it out there, and I have no way of. It's a weird art form with no feedbacks. Basically.
Wow. Well, no feedbacks that get to you.
Yeah.
but I'm sure that a lot of people talk about this because it's very out there.
Yeah.
It's very famous. I mean, it's kind of like being the most famous and also the most anonymous at the same time.
I had this funny moment one time when I was I was riding the bicycle and doing graffiti in Ayalon.
On a very, very main highway in Israel.
Very main highway. Yeah, it was on Yom Kippur.
Which is when nobody's driving car, the whole country stops, and it's a very good day to do graffiti.
Yes, it's a very good day for everything. Every country should have Yom Kippur. It's a brilliant day. There's no cars around. All the roads are free. It's an amazing, very special day. So I was riding, and I stopped at some point, and I bent over the wall. It's hard to explain, but I bent over the wall on the side of the road to spray the other side of the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So people walking on the road could see me doing something, but they could not see what I'm doing.
Oh.
And then there was like a few guys like coming in my direction, and I timed it so I will have enough time before they get to where I am. And as they get closer, there's like one of them is like, "Hey, well, what are you spraying there?" And I'm like, "What do you think?" And he says, "I don't know, like lama התגייסתי."
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, he just guessed.
Yeah, I just guessed, and then I was giggling to myself, and I completed my text, and then I got on the bike and started right. And at that point, he got to the where I was standing, and he bent over the wall, and he saw that he was right. He was like, "Ah, man!"
Oh my God.
And like we changed high fives, and I drove by.
Oh my God, that's crazy. But you really try to keep it discreet. Like you don't want people to know that you're behind this, and you also don't want to get caught, right? Like it's...
Oh yes. Kind of systematic in that way. Like I whenever I get to a point, like I check out, okay, what's how exposed am I? Who can see me from where? And what's my getaway route? Like if somebody does see me and stop, which happened not many times, but
I just want to say, people who are hearing about this for the first time, it's an interesting idea, I'm assuming, to hear about. Israelis that are listening to this obviously know this graffiti because they've seen it several times in their lives, are probably very curious and want to ask you a lot of different questions. And, you know, it's I think very special to have you here and talk to me about this, because you've never been interviewed about this, because nobody knows who you are.
Knows, and that was part of the charm of this thing. I think that nobody knows who is it. Is he a soldier? Is he a veteran? Is he post-traumatic? Is it one man? Is it many people?
For me, it's very exciting to sit here with you, because I feel like it really had an influence on me, and it gave me like the reassurance that there are other people out there asking these questions, and I'm not the only one, and that it's okay to ask this question, and it's not just okay, it's important. Something that we need to ask ourselves as Israelis.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. Yeah. I don't remember at what point it came up, but when I thought about this phrase, it just clicked for me. Also because it's like not imposing. It's not like a daunting list, or like, it's just like, it's a very personal call. And
it's also reflecting about yourself. It's not blaming other people. It's like, my doings. I need to ask questions about what I do and how I do it.
Yeah.
It's very strong.
Yeah.
So we can talk a little bit more about that specifically in a bit, but I wanted to ask you the very, very obvious question. Why did you go to the army? The question that you ask yourself in front of the whole country. I want to ask you now.
Yeah. I thought about it yesterday, and I thought like, I wondered if I really had a choice in this. Like I was sure that this is my choice when I did it. So like I was raised in a very Zionist society, and I got it from home and from school and from everybody around me. There was no question about it. You have to join the army. You have to do your part. Like if you want to be a good person, you have to contribute to society. Like this is what we have to do. And I think I'm a very, I don't know, I have a developed moral sense, and if it's the right thing, then this is the thing I have to do, and there was no question around it because one of the things there was no one around to give another perspective. There was like basically everyone around me was joining the army. I didn't hear any opinion that says anything else. And I think when I was 16, I heard, or at some point, I heard the word pacifism, and I was like, well, that sounds interesting. Or what's that? I'm not a pacifist, but that was like a thought that intrigued me. Okay, there is a new direction there that I'm not familiar with, but there was nowhere to find out about this because it was very clear that you have to join the army. So I'm not sure I had a choice really, in a way.
Yeah, we could dive deep into a conversation about what free will and free choice really are in the face of very brainwashed societies or brainwashed people. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to go there right now. That's a different episode.
I can say something though. I after my what I call my radicalization process, a few years after the army, at some point I met a teacher of mine. Very nice lady. I like her, and I met her years after the army and after the high school, and she was like, "Oh, it's nice to see you," and yada yada. And I told her, "Yeah, it was nice in school, but you know what? I will never forgive you for educating me to sending me to be a soldier." And she looked at me like very confused, and she was like, "Well, you know, some people say like this is the most important part of us being educators. It's like it's not about the education, it's not about the chemistry or math. It's about raising good people who will go to the army and defend us."
Wow, that's so sad that she said that.
Yeah, in a very naive and straightforward way, and I think this is very representative for the state of mind of teachers in Israel.
Yeah, a lot of times when talking about the level of schools, of high schools in Israel, a lot of principals and teachers take pride in their school being one of the best, and the indication or and the measurement is how many of the alumni go
the
to serve in the army.
The percentage of enlistment.
Percentage of enlistment and the percentage of enlistment in combat units as well.
Yeah.
And I think it says a lot about a society when you measure how good the education is in a school according to how many of the students go to serve in combat units or become officers.
Yeah.
That's
insane. And in Israel, that's
it's very normal.
Yeah.
Nobody sees anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
Just like nobody sees anything wrong with the radio being basically controlled by the army.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The public radio.
Yeah.
It's a very sad but telling story about confronting the people who educated you and who brought you up to doing this thing that you seems like you regret since then.
Yeah.
Would you call it regret?
If I regret it? Yeah, I regret it. Yeah. I can say I regret it, actually. It's pretty simple in this matter.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about your army service. I mean, it's not... What made you so regretful and, may I add, maybe angry about you serving in the army that you had to go and tell the whole country in your way, I regret this and maybe you should too?
Yeah. Wow. Where to approach this from? I think the first thing that started to change my mind about it is like realizing that I was part of something that I disagree with, and that I actually did more harm than good by doing it. Harming, like, basically the Palestinians around us, our neighbors, the people I was part in controlling, taking part in the system of controlling them. But I think in the personal level, it was just very bad for me for me personally, it was a very bad time. I suffered in the army. I did not enjoy it, not one bit. It's still alive in me. I think in a way, it's like I was raised and very much believe that this is the right thing to do, and hence I decided to do it. But by doing it, I didn't ask myself, what do I want to do? I kind of gave up on a huge part of myself. I kind of gave up on myself in these 3 years. I basically shut myself down for 3 years to be able to survive this experience that I was going through, which I believed is the right thing to do. But there was no joy in it for me, and it took a high toll on me, I think.
In what way?
I think in every way, in every internal way possible. Like I was depressed. I was severely depressed. I was suicidal in the beginning. Not only in the beginning. No, I was suicidal the whole way through. I think looking back at that kid that I was at that time, I bought on a narrative that was harmful for me, and it nearly killed me. Like also from the outside a couple of times, but mainly from the inside. It nearly killed me from the inside. One of the things that happened pretty early on in my service, when I was already like considering suicide at some point. Like I was not that close to it, but it was on my mind. And then there was this day that, it was a Saturday morning. We stayed in the base, and I went, and I was sitting in the toilet. I remember it very clearly. I was very concerned about the sanitation, so I put toilet paper over the toilet seat, and there was a newspaper on the ground. I didn't want to touch it with my hand, but I wanted to read it, so I like arranged it with my feet so I can read it while I'm sitting on the toilet.
Wow.
And then I was sitting there, and then there was a shot from the booth next to me. And
A gunshot?
A gunshot, yeah.
Wow.
And I knew exactly what's going on because I was thinking about it myself. And I got up and I buckled my pants, and I stepped outside, and I saw the huge puddle of blood getting large on the ground. It was someone from my platoon. That affected me. Also because I saw like what happened after that, and I saw the family afterwards, and I thought like in a way like that shut the door on that way out for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you think of any other ways out as alternatives? Like, did you start thinking of other ways out instead of suicide?
No, not really. No, like I just the only way out was to stay there until the end. That was the way out. And like I had fantasies of like getting shot in combat and getting hurt and being pulled out and being a hero at the same time. But no, in my mind, there's no way out. That was the right thing to do, and I had to do it, even if I die doing it.
Wow.
Which was not far from it. It's still hard for me to like to get a clear picture about the state that I was in while I was in the army. But I have like a few episodes that can help, that can shed some light on it. Like I remember at some point I started cutting myself. Things were somehow that bad inside that I it's something that people do sometimes to ease the pain, basically. And I remember it started in some house we were occupying in the West Bank, and just guarding it and living in it, and watching and resting and watching and resting 4 hours. And I would go at sometimes to we had a chemical toilets
Like
there.
a porta potty.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which can be very nasty sometimes, but that was the
Yeah.
only place I had privacy for months, basically. And I would go there and just make a cut in my leg with my pocket knife it would just, the physical pain would ease the internal pain for a few seconds.
Wow.
So that to understand how things were. And I remember another time. One time I was sitting in an armored vehicle, and we were in some operation in the West Bank, and I was sitting inside. We were inside. I think it was pretty crowded, like 10 people, and then there was explosions and gunshots, and I didn't know what's going on, and I didn't care what's going on. And later they told us that some kid came out of an alley and threw a grenade on the armored vehicles, which landed on it and rolled off it. And if it would have landed in the opening, it could have killed all of us. And then after that happened, they just started spraying everything with the machine guns.
Wow.
But the point is, for me, I was in there, and I was texting with my girlfriend that left me a few months before, and I was heartbroken. I was just this very depressed kid, and I didn't even care what's going outside. Didn't care about all the shooting, and didn't
Wow.
care about the grenade falling. I was just sitting with my phone and texting with my ex-love.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so sad for everybody. It's very, very sad, this situation that you're describing. I think this is a good moment to mention and recognize that there are a lot of cases of suicide of soldiers in the army.
Yeah, and the army shuts silences it.
Yeah, they don't publish the statistics, and they underrepresent this issue.
Yeah, and not only that, there was this independent journalist that exposed this, and I think he suffered consequences because of that.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
It comes up once in a while in the discourse about the soldiers committing suicide and also harming themselves in different ways, many times to get out of the army. So injuring yourself so that you get vacation days to recover. This is also a problem.
I had a friend who convinced another friend to he puts his hand against the wall and bashed it with the blunt side of the gun in order to break his fingers so he will go out.
Yeah, my first boyfriend did that. He convinced two of his very good friends to drop a refrigerator on his finger to break it.
Wow.
And it worked. And we went to the ER, to the emergency room. And apparently it created more damage than what he intended. I guess, if you could even measure what that means. But it created irreversible harm in his fingers. And he got a lot of vacation from the army to recover, which is what he wanted. But he also got an injury that he hardly ever recovered from. And it left damage to his body. And I remember thinking about this recently about, how many soldiers do this, how much they don't actually want to be part of this for whatever reason. And I think it says a lot about the situation here. It's it's very sad, and it's not about feeling bad for them as much as it is for the state of a whole society that is so recruited to this one mission
Yeah.
of oppressing another people, and in doing so is oppressing all the people that are having to
Yeah.
physically do this,
Yeah. Yeah.
to the point of people injuring themselves, killing themselves. It's very, I think it's tragic.
Yeah. I think also like looking back at it, I feel I feel myself very lucky. Like I'm super lucky. Like because in these years I lost a part of myself, and I was completely not in touch with myself and what I want to do and the sensitive parts in me. But I'm very lucky to be able to reestablish this connection later in my life. And not all people, I think maybe not even most people, are not able to do it. Like I don't know if most, but I know people, and I can see it. I can see the internal price that people pay for maintaining this conviction, whether it's with rage or hate or racism or people pay a price for this. The people who are like very convinced in our position being the right one, they pay a tremendous price for this. It's painful to see sometimes. When I said it nearly killed me. It nearly killed me also. Killed my soul for at least for a while. But also it had a toll on my body. Basically, I had a very, very severe autoimmune disease after I got out from the army, which was a serious blow. Because when I got out of the army, I was like, "Oh God, thank God, I'm out of this shit. I can start doing I don't know what, but I can breathe and start thinking what I want to do." And a few months later, I got, I realized I was very sick. It was the way of my body to tell me that, like, you cannot do this to yourself. But my body had bad timing in that way.
It's like your body was like, you're not going to get away with this. Like you.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you see it as connected to the army service at the time?
No, not at all. No, I had when I was freaking 19, 20. I didn't have. I was not in touch with my emotions. I didn't even know I'm depressed. Like I didn't even know I'm suicidal. It was just happening.
Like these are definitions that you realized later on.
Yeah, very very later on. Like this is part of the price that I paid. It's like I was very disconnected from myself, and my body nearly died because of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how long were you sick for?
Like 6 months, intense treatments. It was like it was another blow, just like the army, or even more.
In what way was it a blow? Like taking away your freedom to live your life?
It was kind of like being, I don't know, strapped in a coffin for 3 years or something, having no joy and no. When I was in the army, all I wanted to do is get out of the army. All I waited for is my time at home, for my turn to have a weekend at home. And the thing is, when I got the weekend at home, I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't have hobbies. I didn't have. I was like giving up on myself for like. I don't know, 2.5 weeks out of 3. It did not end there. Like when I came home, I realized, like, I didn't realize, but I also didn't know. I was not in touch with myself. I didn't know what I want to do even. So even when I was at home, I was suffering, and I was having I remember having lots of rage. So it's like I was strapped in a coffin for 3 years, and then at some point the coffin is open, and I can get out, and I can spread my wings and come out to the world, and then bam, it's hospital time for you, baby.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you at this point were in your early 20s, trying to get your health together, trying to start your life as an adult. And I'm assuming someone like this that still hasn't understood the wider implications of the army service is focused on getting better personally and not like analyzing the political implications, right?
Yeah, not at all, not yet. I even remember like a couple of years after 2 or 3 years later, I was abroad at some point, and I had have some family there, which I met for the first time, and I was sitting in a family dinner, and I consider myself the lefty. Okay, from the beginning, I was a lefty. That was like I was the lefty of the platoon, the lefty of the whole battalion.
Wow.
I was the one that defends the Arabs. But nonetheless, in this family dinner, like I was sitting there in a European country and with very nice people, which I met for the first time, and I was very polite and I wanted them to like me. And at some point, I got like a vibe that they were being critical of Israel. And I remember how it was like a lead armor like dropped over me, and I got so defensive, like, and I found myself saying all these things like, you don't know how it is. You cannot judge it from the outside. You don't know how it is to be in Israel. It's complicated and we have to defend ourselves. And I was like, years later, I was still considering myself a lefty, but being very much in support of everything that I've done and the necessity of it.
Is this because of the price you paid? So you felt like you couldn't dare question if it was worth it?
No, I think it's because I don't know. I saw it as a threat. I don't know. No, I don't know if a threat for myself or for the Israeli society, but it was. But I think more of like a threat for Israel, like people like that who don't know what they're talking about. come with all these liberals, universal ideas that are completely irrelevant to the to the reality of our situation here.
So that's what you were thinking at the time in your early 20s. And when did you understand that maybe there was a little truth to what these people were saying?
It took a few years, and at some point I was living abroad, and I started. It was blogs. It was not from talking to anybody. It was not from meeting Palestinians. It was just living outside of the country, and I had time to look into things, and I found some interesting blogs, which completely I dove into them, and I saw that there is some truth in there that was interesting for me, and I started reading, and it completely changed the way I see the world.
These were political blogs, or
political blogs? Yes, I can say the names maybe. Like,
sure.
It was Yossi Gurvitz and Shalom Bogoslavsky and Didan Lando. The most of all, he's amazing. He is amazing. He really dives into stuff and analyzes like the IDF statement and statistics and
and civil disobedience. He talks a lot about that. But it's very surprising that you said names of Israelis, because when you were talking about living abroad and reading blogs, I was assuming that you were talking about just people from abroad. And now you're telling me when you moved outside of the country, then you had, I guess, the bandwidth to read about the inner criticism in Hebrew.
Yeah, it's funny because I was there a few years, and then I came back. There was no one around me that thought like me, and that was very hard.
What did it look like?
Well, at that point, like I realized that, man, I was scammed. I was tricked into something that was bad for me, was bad for my own country. It was bad for the Jews around me. It was bad for the Palestinians around me, for sure. It was not good for anybody. And holy shit, like this, I nearly died and I suffered so much for this lie. That was. I was very angry at that point.
How old were you at this point?
I was maybe 20s, 28, 27. Yeah. I was angry. I was mad at my dad very much. I argued with him, with other people. Yeah. And I was very alone in it as well. No one around me thinks the way I think, see the world. And I'm like, and like the injustice just screams out, and I have nobody to share it with. Yeah.
And how long did it take until you really found other people to share it with? Because now we know this podcast is one of the, proofs to it, but there are people out there, and so did you connect to other people at a certain point? Did you disconnect from the people that didn't see what you saw?
I didn't disconnect from anybody intentionally, but I found other people. I found a friend that was a conscientious objector, and and suddenly I started finding other people who shared my point of view.
It's interesting though, because as a conscientious objector, this person realized what you realized at age 26, 7. He realized it when he was 16, 17.
Yeah.
Like a decade beforehand.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a different kind of inner conversation.
Yeah. And it was very different. It was, and he had knowledge and point of view and perspective that I did not have. And it was also kind of weird for me to talk about it with people who think like me, because I was so
you were so used to people just
I was
opposing.
so used to being alone with my ideas that only some mysterious people on blogs hold these ideas. Yeah.
So was this graffiti born out of this anger, out of this kind of like, why isn't anyone asking themselves this question, or was that later on?
Well, I had a strong impulse to create something or to get this energy of this immense amount of rage out of my system. So I guess that was one way to channel it out. And at the same time, I was thinking, okay, how did I end in this situation? Like, what happened to me? And I realized, okay, it's because this opinion was nowhere around me. And like one way to get this opinion around me was to do this graffiti, just to write it everywhere. So like people can see, like kids can see that like this might not be right.
Wow.
And be exposed to this other point of view, which I had nowhere around me.
So basically you were very alone in this mindset, and you were like, well, if nobody around me thinks this way, maybe I'll just make them think this way through the graffiti.
Yeah, I think it was more humble than that. Like, I will put this opinion out there, and like, hopefully, some people who have a doubt in them, it will touch them. It will something there might connect. Maybe, I don't know, but
it's exactly what it does. I can tell you from someone who does hear the feedback about it. Do you feel like after a decade of doing this, and it becoming kind of, I could say, an icon of questioning the narrative here.
Wow, I really don't think of myself as that.
Not you, but the art itself, I'd say. Do you feel like you gave yourself some kind of redemption or an answer to all your questions at the time when you were younger, or maybe even just easing your pain or your anger?
Oh yeah, I think mainly I eased my own suffering from this thing. Yeah. There was lots of anger in me, and I had to get it out. And I'm like still have some of it, but this was good for me. And also it was like I was living in this reality that there is like most people around me don't see the shit that I'm seeing, and I have to do something about it. And I don't have the connections, and I don't know the people, and I have no idea what is activism and how to do activism, and I don't know any Palestinian, or I don't have any partners basically. But I don't need. I can do something on my own. I can just go out there and do it.
You just spray a wall.
Just spray a wall. It's very simple, and the next day it's there. And
hopefully for a few other days.
Yeah, hopefully for a few other days.
For a few more days.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned today, you do know other people who share your views, and you are an activist other than the art, the graffiti that you do. Do you feel that you have more hope now that you've like found the others, quote unquote? And what is your situation today?
Well, also today I'm active like in different in different zones, expanded to different zones, you can say. But also like I see like the complexity in so other in everywhere. Like I can see the fear on our side. I can see the fear on the other side. I can see like how these systems are recreating themselves, and I can see how the Holocaust is connected to a lot of it. I can see how the uprooting of the Jews from all over, whether it is from Europe or from the Arab countries, is also connected to it and contributed to this like very shallow narrative that we define ourselves with. That's
You're referring to Zionism?
like Zionism. Yeah, this whole story that we have to. What we are doing is justified because we have to defend ourselves, and otherwise because people want to kill us all over. It's a very strong narrative, very simple one, but very effective.
What do you think about this narrative today when you look around you?
I think that it's silly. Plainly speaking, like I can see how it's very emotionally activating and very effective, but I don't know. Like, looking back at myself, like being 18, and I'm like, do you ever look at yourself and you think like, oh man, how could I have been so dumb? That's it. Come on, this is just a part of it.
Yeah, definitely. But I think there's a lot of power to looking back at, 16, 17, 18-year-old me, or even 22-year-old me, and thinking to myself, I just want to have compassion for that person.
Yeah.
That was so confused and so brainwashed and so scared and bought into things that today I feel are very, very harmful.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I have compassion to it. I remember one time I was like a few elections ago, I was crossing a bridge and there were some kids from the Noam party, which are like
very, very conservative, homophobic, right-wing political party. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the most, I think, and they were very, and I passed by and I was like, and they were having some banner or something about gays, or I'm not sure even, but something very vulgar, and I was like, hey guys, what's up with this? And they started like they got it from that I'm from the other side or something, and they started like preaching to me, and I was I don't know, I could like that was very humane. Like I asked them to bring a chair and I sat them with there and I listened to them for like an hour and a half, and I listened. I was supposed to take a bus and I could see the bus under the bridge like passing by again and again, and every time I was like, okay, I'll take the next one,
oh wow
one. And I sat there and I'm listening to them, and like every time I'm like, they say something which is very like racist or homophobic or just full of fear, and every time I just trying to tell them, yeah, but can I just say something about it? But they still had to get it out, all this rage and all this conviction, and I had to let them. I had to listen. Basically, I sat there and listened to them, and only after an hour and a half they got it out, and then like they were open to listening a little bit. And then I tell them, listen, guys, okay, the next bus, I'm getting on it. But before I go, I want to tell you a few things. Is that okay? And then I just like gave them a completely other perspective. And they're like, stuff that they never heard before. And like they were talking about the gay parade in Tel Aviv and how bad it is, and like that people are going nude and or like stuff like that. And what's wrong with nudity, guys? Like, man, you should go to a festival one time. There's festival in Europe where everybody goes naked and it's pretty nice. It's not about sex, and like you can go. And like they never heard this in their life. They never even imagined it. And I think a part of them was fascinated by it. But yeah, in a way, I have lots of empathy to like, especially these kids, the most convinced from the right wings. You know what? I prefer in a way, it's easier for me to relate. Like even the most violent right-wing guy that goes on the hills and hit shepherds with sticks. It's easier for me to relate to him than to people who are like sitting in Tel Aviv, consider themselves lefties, and work for a
cybersecurity company that is part of the military-industrial complex, and
yes.
they feel like they're so liberal and open and justice-driven.
Yes.
So basically, you're saying I'd rather just have the blunt, plain racism than the hypocrisy.
Yeah, I prefer my aggression on the surface.
Yeah, I can understand. There's a lot to that saying. I prefer my aggression on the surface. I hear people talking about this, about how the so-called left in Israel is just built on hypocrisy.
Yeah,
and people would rather deal with anyone who's being honest, even if the honesty is about racism and homophobia, than people who are hypocritical about their real views.
Yeah. Or consider themselves very like liberal and universal, but actually are super racist, like
super fascist.
Super fascist. And if you talk to them about Palestinians, they will not even say like no, we have to conquer them. They will just say, okay, it's complicated. I still have to do to go to the reserve army.
Yeah. Very grim, those sayings, those conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I really appreciate this conversation. And is there anything you want to add to the listeners? I know that some of the listeners are Palestinians, Palestinian refugees, or Palestinians living here. Some are Israelis, some are Jews, some are just people around the world who find this interesting or important. So is there anything you'd like to say?
I don't know. I don't feel I have anything very smart to say. I think like just, well, of course, for the Palestinians listening to this, I'm sorry for what my side is like doing. But for everybody, like, wish we can just breathe more and try to relate to each other, to people who think different from us.
You keep it simple.
Yeah, I give it simple.
Even when it's not graffiti. I like it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Roy Geva, for the beautiful music that he composed for this podcast. And thank you for listening.